Today in India, every single year, there are around 2.8 crore kids जो अपना बोर्ड एग्जाम्स देते हैं. अब इंडिया में प्राइवेट स्कूल्स मिला के 3.15 lakh. When I moved abroad, a lot of these bubbles burst because there's a lot of hard work to be done. Students यूनिवर्सिटी रिसर्च में उतना टाइम स्पेंड ही नहीं करते. और आप सोच के देखो कि आप अपनी कंट्री से बाहर जा रहे हो और आपको क्लैरिटी ही नहीं है कि आप जहाँ जा रहे हो उसकी अपॉर्चुनिटीज क्या है. द फर्स्ट डे आई वाज अमेज्ड विद द फैक्ट हाउ ब्रिलियंट पीपल वर अराउंड. A very interesting question that I get asked very often is studying abroad cheaper than India or is it possible? अगर आप आज एक हाई स्कूल स्टूडेंट हो और आपको बिल्कुल भी आइडिया नहीं है कि स्टडी अब्रॉड करना कैसे है, अगर आप कॉलेज में भी हो एंड स्टिल यू आर वंडरिंग एंड ड्रीमिंग टू गो टू द बेस्ट बिजनेस स्कूल्स इन द वर्ल्ड. Hi, I'm Abhishek Gulati. Before I begin to talk about what I'm supposed to be talking about, it's only fair that I give you a gist about who I am and what my journey has been. I'm from Delhi, but I love saying this that I have never grown up and I've never been raised in Delhi. And why do I say that? Because I grew up in a beautiful town in the Uttarakhand hills of Mussoorie. I went to a British boarding school, spent almost a decade there, and that is where my journey began. I was that active kid who did everything under the sun, which was the best part about studying in the hills. Beautiful sunsets, a good life, without caring about anything pretty much that was going outside. But a change started to happen when I realized I was in grade 10. My friends started talking about college. And until then, life बहुत अच्छी थी. But घर पे relatives आने लगे और पूछने लगे कि करना क्या चाहते हो. And that is where the problem started for me as well. Because the only thing I wanted to do was play hockey for India. Because that's one sport I played really well. And the plans were in order. But life happens and that didn't work out. Fortunately enough, I had the right grades. Because as Asian kids, that's what we're told. Get the right grades, get the best colleges. Never ever I dreamt I'll be going and studying abroad because who did? I mean, Delhi University was the best thing for us to do. And that's what we heard from our teachers, from our friends. And so I thought, I'll get the scores, I'll get to a good university. But again, life had other plans. Fortunately enough, I had done enough things in the school to be able to consider studying abroad, even if I had no clarity. One of my really good friends said, I am applying to universities abroad. For the fun of it, why don't you do it as well? Long story short, I did, without no guidance, with very little research, with random ideas, and aiming too high than I should have. That's what my teacher had told me. Fast forward to 2 months, when board results were out and admission results are out, not only did I make it to all the colleges I applied to, I made it to some of the best ones in the world. I believe that is just luck. And that is when I told my parents I've applied, because until unless I had the offers, I would have not told my parents कि मैं बाहर जा रहा हूँ. Because मुझे पता ही नहीं था क्या करना है. When I came back home from school, I had everything in order, but something did not work out to the sense that I couldn't go and study abroad that time. I wasn't sure what to do. I was worried, I was scared, I had no admissions in India. But thank you to that percentage at that point, I luckily got in to some of the good colleges in India and started studying here. But this is where my life changed. Because I knew I couldn't go study abroad at this point of time, did not mean the life was over. India had some good schools at that point. I tried and get in. Fortunately, while studying at university, I met some really good seniors who were doing some exchange programs. लेकिन exchange programs का मतलब मुझे पता नहीं था. I saw one of my seniors, she was applying to a university called London School of Economics. Coincidentally, that was one of the schools I got into for my undergrad as well, but couldn't go. She said, why don't you apply as well? You have good scores, a good profile. I applied, got in, and that is where the move to study abroad actually started for me. I was just in my first year applying to university, got in. The first day, I was amazed with the fact how brilliant people were around me. Because A, I was not the smartest person in the room. I was one of the few people who wanted to learn but had no idea. I can go on talking about this, but what is most important is the professors I met there. They encouraged me so much to study hard, do well, and some of them even said, why don't you get a transfer here? We will help you with it. The first thing I did was call my parents, call my director in university, and told her, can I stay here because I'm doing well? She said, sure. If you're able to manage exams here and apply and continue working on a transfer student, I'm happy to help you in whatever way. So my journey is nothing without the people who supported me. And fast forward, I completed my education, went immediately to University College London for my master's, and that is that. My move to London was not easy, not simple, but it was an interesting one. Now, before I get into my journey further, I want to talk about something very interesting. As kids in India, we've always dreamt about studying abroad. That sounds like a fancy world out there, the ones we have grown up seeing in different movies. Some made here, some made in Hollywood, and we've been fascinated by interesting lives, parties, going out, also studying, also working as well. But when I moved abroad, a lot of these bubbles burst because there's a lot of hard work to be done. First thing that I want to talk about is, why do we need to look at studying abroad in the first place? Now, you might wonder that we have a lot of resources available in India, sure, but we need exposure, we need better career opportunities, we need a better standard of living. These might be the most common reasons. But let me tell you the most important one, the lack of infrastructure. Today in India, every single year, there are around 2.8 crore kids जो अपना board exams देते हैं. अब इंडिया में प्राइवेट स्कूल्स मिला के 3.15 लाख हैं. अगर उनमें से हर स्कूल में एक अच्छा बच्चा भी हम लें, तब भी जाके इंडिया के कॉलेजेस में उनको टियर 1 यूनिवर्सिटी में एडमिशन मिल ही नहीं सकता, बिकॉज combined seats in tier 1 colleges in India are less than 2.5 lakhs. That is where the problem of infrastructure comes in. 10 years ago, ये प्रॉब्लम बहुत बड़ा था. अब हमारी यूनिवर्सिटी ने बहुत अच्छा काम करा है, लेकिन अभी भी वो लैग एग्जिस्ट करता है. तो अगर आज मैं क्लास 10th या 11th में हूँ, I have to go and look at some schools abroad ताकि I can actually get good education. Second reason is, if I want to get into careers which are very specialized, and if I don't have that possibility in India, what do I do? Do I keep sitting and dreaming that career comes in? I'll give you an example. Today, if you want to be an astrophysicist, इंडिया में बहुत अच्छे इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं. वी हैव द लाइक्स ऑफ IITs, VIT एटसेट्रा. लेकिन कोई भी एस्ट्रोफिजिक्स में स्पेशलाइज उतने लेवल पे नहीं करता जैसे कि MIT और स्टैनफोर्ड करते हैं. सो अगर मुझे उस लेवल पे जाना है, मैं 5 साल वेट नहीं कर सकता. That is the reason Indian students need to look at studying abroad. Not because of any other reason. इंडिया में अपॉर्चुनिटीज हैं, लेकिन कुछ एरियाज में नहीं. What do we start doing from now? अगर आप आज एक हाई स्कूल स्टूडेंट हो और आपको बिल्कुल भी आइडिया नहीं है कि स्टडी अब्रॉड करना कैसे है, अगर आप कॉलेज में भी हो and still you're wondering and dreaming to go to the best business schools in the world, you still have a lot of things to do. Let me break it down very simply so you understand this. The first thing you need to understand is यूनिवर्सिटीज के लिए मार्क्स बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. लेकिन when I mean marks, मैं सिर्फ आपके बोर्ड मार्क्स की बात नहीं कर रहा. Let me give you a simple example. इंडियन स्टूडेंट्स को लगता है या वी बिलीव कि 10th और 12th के बोर्ड मार्क्स सब कुछ है. लेकिन अगर आपको आज यूएस की टॉप यूनिवर्सिटीज में अंडर ग्रेड करने जाना है, वो आपके 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th के मार्क्स, 4 साल की कंसिस्टेंसी बहुत जरूरी है. अगर आप वो कंसिस्टेंसी नहीं दिखा सकते, आप कैसे एक्सपेक्ट कर सकते हो यूनिवर्सिटी को कि दे विल सी यू आर अ सीरियस स्टूडेंट? इट्स वेरी वेरी डिफिकल्ट. Of course, I'm giving you an example of US. This is not same for every country, but this is an important factor. Marks are important. They are not the only reason. Second thing जो यूनिवर्सिटीज के लिए इंपॉर्टेंट है, वो है आपकी ओवरऑल प्रोफाइल. नाउ प्रोफाइल इज अ वेरी मिसयूज्ड वर्ड. सब बोलते हैं आप जो भी एक्टिविटीज करते हो प्रोफाइल में आती है. जब आप यूनिवर्सिटी में अप्लाई करते हो, हर यूनिवर्सिटी की रिक्वायरमेंट बहुत डिफरेंट है. अगर एक यूनिवर्सिटी अपने मार्क्स पे फोकस करना चाहती है तो वो सिर्फ मार्क्स पूछेगी. लेकिन बहुत सारी यूनिवर्सिटी ऐसी हैं जिनके लिए मार्क्स एक बहुत छोटा क्राइटेरिया है. उनको ये जानना है कि अगर आपने इकोनॉमिक्स पढ़ना है, आपने इकोनॉमिक्स के लिए आज तक पिछले 4 साल में क्या किया है. क्योंकि अगर आप इंटरेस्ट शो नहीं कर सकते या उसकी तरफ अपना एप्टीट्यूड शो नहीं कर सकते, आप उनके लिए सही स्टूडेंट नहीं हो. बट ये इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि आपके लिए और स्कूल नहीं है. तो फर्स्ट चीज आपको अंडरस्टैंड करनी जरूरी है कि रिक्वायरमेंट्स क्या है जहां आप जा रहे हो. सेकेंड पॉइंट ये आपके लिए इंपॉर्टेंट है, जिस कंट्री में भी आप जा रहे हो वहां पे आपके करियर के लिए अपॉर्चुनिटीज क्या है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर आज के टाइम पे आपको रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी या सोलर एनर्जी इंडस्ट्री में काम करना है, आपके लिए बेस्ट कंट्री नेदरलैंड्स या आयरलैंड है, बिकॉज वो उसमें काम कर रहे हैं. लेकिन अगर आप हर स्टूडेंट की तरह इंडिया से यूएस या यूके जाओगे और वो उस इंडस्ट्री में काम ही नहीं कर रहे, तो आपको ऑफकोर्स जॉब्स और करियर्स में बहुत मुश्किल आएगी. तो ये डिसीजन आपका है, पर ये रिसर्च आप उस कंट्री में जाने के बाद नहीं, आपको ये रिसर्च अभी करनी बहुत जरूरी है. थर्ड पॉइंट, नाउ एवरी पर्सन इज वेरी डिफरेंट. अगर आज मैं कोई वेबसाइट खोलता हूँ, मुझे वो वेबसाइट अच्छी लगी, इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि वो आपको भी अच्छी लगेगी. सिमिलरली, अगर मैं एक स्टूडेंट हूँ और मेरे पास एक यूनिवर्सिटी की लिस्ट है, जरूरी नहीं है कि वो लिस्ट मेरे फ्रेंड के लिए भी वर्क करे. दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट सबके लिए अंडरस्टैंड करना, बिकॉज आई हैव सीन काफी लोग जो लोगों से लिस्ट मांग लेते हैं, ऑनलाइन रिसर्च कर लेते हैं, बट वो लिस्ट के बाद भी बहुत सारे स्टेप्स आते हैं. स्टूडेंट्स यूनिवर्सिटी रिसर्च में उतना टाइम स्पेंड ही नहीं करते. और आप सोच के देखो कि आप अपनी कंट्री से बाहर जा रहे हो और आपको क्लैरिटी ही नहीं है कि आप जहां जा रहे हो उसकी अपॉर्चुनिटीज क्या है. आज के टाइम पे एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्टर जो मैं इंकरेज करता हूँ, सेफ्टी एंड हेल्थ केयर. After COVID-19, we have realized healthcare is one of the most important reasons parents are looking at. Every single year, I work with 100 plus kids, helping them apply to the best schools in the world. And one major concern parents are asking in the last 2 years is there a good healthcare facility? Is the ease of travel convenient for our kids? God forbid something happens, can we travel to our kid in within 6 or 8 hours? These factors are equally important as well. And I can go on with the list. But मेरा point simple है, आपको अपनी research करनी बहुत जरूरी है. Fourth factor, and ये बहुत सिंपल ट्रिक है, मैं इसको बोलता हूँ करियर बैक ट्रैकिंग. दिस विल हेल्प यू अलॉट इन फिगरिंग आउट आपको कहाँ पढ़ना भी चाहिए. लेट्स अज्यूम आज के टाइम पे मुझे गूगल में काम करना है, लेकिन मुझे कोई भी क्लैरिटी नहीं कि गूगल में जॉब क्या करनी है. बट आपको ये पता है कि आपकी प्रेफर्ड कंट्री यूएस है बिकॉज गूगल का हेड ऑफिस वहाँ है. अगर मैं आज हाई स्कूल स्टूडेंट हूँ, मैं सिंपली गूगल की वेबसाइट पे या लिंक्डइन पे जाके सर्च कर सकता हूँ कि गूगल कौन सी यूनिवर्सिटी से रेगुलरली रिक्रूट करता है और कौन से रोल्स के लिए. अगर आपको जीरो क्लैरिटी भी है, जैसे ही आपको 15-20 यूनिवर्सिटीज के नाम मिलते हैं, आपकी रिसर्च बहुत आसान हो जाती है, क्योंकि आप 500 यूनिवर्सिटीज, लेट्स बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट, सर्च नहीं कर सकते. सो दिस इज वेयर फिगरिंग आउट द प्रोसेस रियली स्टार्ट्स. Now, if I'm a high school student, what do I do to apply for the best schools in the world, right? Let me give you a very simple example. आज मुझे बायोलॉजी पढ़ने के लिए बाहर पढ़ने जाना है और मैं 10th क्लास में हूँ. What can I start doing? Of course, you need to look at, अगर मुझे पर्टिकुलर कंट्री जाना है, यूएस, कनाडा, यूके, ऑस्ट्रेलिया, कहीं भी, उनके लिए सब्जेक्ट रिक्वायरमेंट्स क्या हैं. कुछ स्टूडेंट्स ये भूल जाते हैं कि हर कंट्री की सब्जेक्ट रिक्वायरमेंट्स बहुत डिफरेंट है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, बायो पढ़ने के लिए कुछ यूनिवर्सिटीज और कुछ कंट्रीज में मैथ्स पढ़ना साथ में कंपलसरी है, लेकिन ये हर जगह जरूरी नहीं है. राइट, सो यू हैव टू ट्राई एंड अंडरस्टैंड दीज फैक्टर्स. नाउ इफ आई हैव बायोलॉजी और मुझे जाके डॉक्टर बनना है या मुझे बायोमेडिसिन करना है या बायोटेक करना है, क्या चीजें आप 11th-12th में कर सकते हो ताकि आपकी प्रोफाइल स्ट्रॉन्ग हो. फर्स्ट इज लर्निंग. राइट, हाउ डू यू लर्न अबाउट द डोमेन आउटसाइड योर कोर्स? Online courses, certifications, there are virtual internships which are free of cost, available from the best universities, companies. This is all can be done. Am I reading about the domain? Second factor to upgrade this is find people who are doing what you want to do. If I want to be a doctor, can I go and talk to a doctor? Interview और informational interviews, उनके बारे में सीखो कि काम होता क्या है. जब आप मेडिसिन के लिए बाहर अप्लाई करते हो, काफ़ी यूनिवर्सिटीज आपको शैडोइंग करने को बोलती है. शैडोइंग का मतलब होता है कि आप एक सेटअप में ऑब्जर्व कर रहे हो कि आप उस जॉब के लिए रेडी भी हो कि नहीं, और आपको डे टू डे लाइफ पता हो. Half the students I work with go and work with a doctor for a day and are scared this is not the life I want because it's a high pressure and very difficult environment, and they actually leave. There's nothing wrong with it. You realize it doesn't work for you. Third bit is, if you know what you want to do, can I also build my initiatives? For example, हेल्थ केयर के लिए मैं आजकल लोगों को अवेयरनेस क्रिएट कर सकता हूँ अबाउट वेरी बेसिक थिंग्स. आप अपना इनिशिएटिव बिल्ड कर सकते हो टू शो आपको इंटरेस्ट तो है पर आप लोगों को भी हेल्प करना चाहते हो. दैट कवर्स कम्युनिटी वर्क, दैट ऑल्सो शोज लीडरशिप. हाउ आर यू वर्किंग इन टीम्स? नाउ मैं बायो स्टूडेंट हूँ, मैं ज्यादा चीजें नहीं करता बट मैं स्पोर्ट्स भी खेलता हूँ. I always say this, your sports or your activities are your objectives. Let me quickly explain that. अगर मैं आज एक टीम स्पोर्ट खेलता हूँ, let's say cricket, and I've played this for 5 years, मेरे बारे में किसी को भी ये पता है कि मैं टीम प्लेयर हूँ, मैं लोगों के साथ काम करना जानता हूँ और मैं कंसिस्टेंट हूँ, मैं इजीली चीजें छोड़ता नहीं हूँ. लास्ट फैक्टर इज हाउ डू यू अप्रोच दिस. नाउ अ लॉट ऑफ people are there to support you, they're counselors, consultants, but I want to give you a very quick idea who are the right people for you. अगर आज के टाइम पे आपको बहुत क्लैरिटी है कि आपको क्या करना है and you have explored everything, you don't really need to go to any and everybody. What you can do is find people who can guide you towards your application process because they are experts, which are application consultants who can help you. If you are somebody who has no clarity and need to figure out what to do, then you go to people like career counselors because they have clarity in helping you figure out. They will discuss with you, give you assessments, work with you. But in case you want to start early and you want to build a profile, explore yourself and go to the best schools, you start working with career coaches. You start working with people as a career coach. I work with people as early as class 6 and 7 because then I know the student, I know the journey, but everyone is very different. You need to find the right coaches and mentors to work with you. Am I saying is it necessary? Absolutely not. I mean, I went abroad to some of the good schools, fortunately. We had no idea what career guidance is, right? But today, because we have a resource available, you need to use it. One of my favorite things to use to get into universities are Instagram and LinkedIn. Now, you might be wondering, how do we do that? Instagram, all of you use regularly. But let me ask you, how many of you have followed the universities you want to get into? अगर मुझे यूनिवर्सिटी के बारे में जानना है, इंस्टाग्राम से बेटर रिसोर्स हो ही नहीं सकता बिकॉज एवरी सिंगल डे दे आर अपलोडिंग एंड पोस्टिंग अबाउट द स्टूडेंट लाइफ. और अगर मैं इंडिया में रह के एक ग्लोबल यूनिवर्सिटी सर्च कर रहा हूँ, उससे बेटर मेरे लिए आउटलेट ही नहीं है टू सी कि मेरी स्टूडेंट लाइफ कैसी होगी. अब आप सारी यूनिवर्सिटी जाके नहीं देख सकते. There's no campus tour available for all the schools, and that will be very costly, right? Traveling to all the universities. But Instagram gives you a way to see how your life is going to be. LinkedIn, which is 100% my favorite tool, how do you start leveraging it? I am a class 11 student who wants to go and study management in a university in the UK. You have picked up the university. Why can't you start connecting with students studying there? Easiest. Let's also find alumni who have graduated in the last 4 or 5 years because they're relatable to you. Please don't find people who graduated 40 years ago because they are from a different generation, doesn't really add value to you. Their experience does, but the university experience is not relevant, right? Beyond this, why don't I reach out to a professor? I can simply tell them, listen, I'm looking forward to come to the school. Is there any particular advice you have for me? Can I have a call with you virtually and discuss something about you? I'm really liking the work the university is doing. You will be surprised how often these people react because they also want good students. And I always use this example of people like Mr. Sundar Pichai or Satya Nadella. When these people became who they are today, their universities were very proud. I mean, IIT Kharagpur and Stanford were running around the streets talking about how their alum is leading the biggest company in the world. So the idea is even a university is looking for the best people. But how do you make that story is very important. One major part of universities is storytelling. But what people often forget, this is your story. That story needs to have an element of surprise to show that who you are as a person. It can be as silly as possible. Every single year, I read beautiful stories. And that's exactly what you put across in your applications. Now, a very interesting question that I get asked very often is studying abroad cheaper than India, or is it possible? Let me give you a couple of examples to actually break this cycle so you understand this better. Let's assume I am applying to some of the private universities in India. On average, the tuition of private schools in India can go anywhere between 15 lakhs for 4 years up till 45 lakhs. Now, the same student applying to, let's say, University of Amsterdam in Netherlands, one of the best schools for psychology, media, communication, business, etc., their average tuition for 3-year degree comes out to be 45 lakhs, just the tuition fees. If I add living and everything, it will be 75 to 80 lakhs. That is if I have no scholarships. But what if you apply the right way, get scholarships, your cost of education can be much cheaper or the same as universities in India. If I'm applying to countries like Germany and I have a B2 level of German qualification, which is a language qualification, and I have done the right things, government universities can fund your entire education. This year, I'm very proud to say I have a student who's going to a university in Canada with a 2.24 CR scholarship. She has paid nothing. In fact, they've also paid for travel back and forth to Canada 4 times, one each every year. But what did the student do? She was very sincere, worked for the last 4 years, and no university in India would have been cheaper. So it can be a cheaper thing if you are looking at it the right way. There is nothing called jugaad when you look at studying abroad. It has to be always done the right way. So please understand studying abroad is a beautiful thing. If done right, if done with the right guidance, it can even be better. And I hope this information helps you a lot.